8:47 a.m. Laredo, Texas. A truck stop off Interstate 35. The diesel pumps hum under sodium vapor lights. 18-wheelers idle in long metal rows, their refrigeration units rattling against the South Texas dark. A Kenworth T680 sits in the third bay from the fence. Texas plates, blue cab, mud flaps stamped with the silhouette of a horse. The driver is asleep in the sleeper berth. He is 46 years old. He has logged 1.2 million miles for a mid-sized carrier headquartered in Dallas. His employer calls him a platinum tier operator. His wife, back in Mesquite, calls him every night at 9. At 3:51 a.m., 22 FBI agents in tactical gear move across the asphalt in a wedge formation. They carry breaching tools, ballistic shields, and federal warrants. The lead agent raps 3 times on the driver's door. What they find inside the cab is not contraband narcotics. It is not stolen freight. It is not counterfeit currency. It is a 19-year-old woman from Honduras, bound at the wrists with plastic zip ties, hidden behind a false panel in the sleeper compartment. She has been inside that truck for 9 days. She is the 7th. This is the story of Operation Black Diesel, a 14-month federal investigation that began as a routine missing persons case in Oklahoma City and ended in the early hours of a Tuesday morning with coordinated raids across 6 states, 18 arrests, and the dismantling of what federal prosecutors are now calling one of the most sophisticated long-haul trafficking networks ever uncovered on American interstates. The man asleep in that Kenworth was not a rogue operator. He was an employee. He carried a company ID, a corporate fuel card, and a logbook signed off by a federally certified safety officer. His route was assigned by a dispatcher in a glass-walled office in suburban Dallas. His paychecks were direct deposited every other Friday. How did we get here? How did the American trucking industry, the steel and rubber circulatory system that moves 72% of all domestic freight, become a corridor for the trafficking of human beings? The answer begins, as these answers often do, with a single phone call. October 14th of last year, Oklahoma City Police Department, 11:22 a.m. A mother walks into the lobby of the precinct. Her daughter, 18 years old, has not been heard from in 4 days. The daughter had taken a job through an online listing, a logistics assistant position promising $1,400 a week, training included, transportation provided. The mother has the listing printed out. She has the address of the staging warehouse. She has a name, Premier Continental Logistics. The detective who takes the report is a 16-year veteran named Angela Ruiz. She runs the company name through the state business registry. Premier Continental Logistics is registered to a P.O. box in Plano, Texas. Its filing agent is a holding company. Its holding company is registered in Delaware. Its Delaware filings list a single corporate officer, and that corporate officer is listed at 3 other shell entities, all of them in some way connected to interstate trucking. Detective Ruiz makes a call to a friend at the FBI's Dallas field office. By the end of that week, the case has a federal case number. By the end of that month, it has a task force. By the end of November, that task force has identified 21 missing women across 7 states, all of whom answered similar online job listings, all of whom were last. Seen entering vehicles dispatched by entities tracing back, through layers of corporate camouflage, to the same Dallas area trucking conglomerate. The conglomerate's CEO appeared on a regional business podcast in February. He spoke for 38 minutes about supply chain resilience. He used the phrase moral backbone 4 times. His name appears on the federal indictment unsealed last week. The investigation expanded in concentric rings. Agents began with the dispatch records, federally mandated electronic logging device data that every commercial truck in America is required to transmit. The data showed something strange. Certain drivers, on certain routes, made unscheduled stops at locations that did not correspond to any registered freight terminal. The stops lasted between 14 and 40 minutes. They occurred most often between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. They happened at rest areas, at truck stops, at one closed-down agricultural inspection station outside Las Cruces, New Mexico. The stops formed a pattern. The pattern formed a map. The map showed a corridor running from the southern border, up through Texas, branching east into Louisiana and Mississippi, and continuing north through Arkansas and Missouri, into the industrial Midwest. By January, federal agents had identified 43 drivers operating along the corridor whose route deviations could not be explained by mechanical issues, weather, or legitimate freight logistics. By March, they had wiretaps. By May, they had cooperating witnesses. By July, they had everything they needed. What they had, when they finally laid it out for the grand jury in a sealed federal courtroom in the Northern District of Texas, was this: 3 trucking companies, operating under a single shared ownership structure, had been used over a period of at least 4 years to move trafficked women across state lines. The companies maintained legitimate freight contracts. They hauled produce, electronics, automotive parts, and refrigerated goods. They paid their taxes. They passed their DOT inspections. They had a combined fleet of 231 trucks. Of those 231 trucks, federal investigators determined that at least 34 had been modified to include hidden compartments, false panels in, sleeper berths, modified ceiling cavities, reconstructed under bunk storage. The modifications were professional. They had been performed at a single body shop in Garland, Texas, owned by a relative of the trucking conglomerate's CEO. Investigators also determined that the dispatch software used by the companies had been customized to flag certain loads with a particular code, a code that, on its surface, indicated a high-priority refrigerated shipment, but which in practice signaled to participating drivers that human cargo was on board. The financial flows were similarly sophisticated. Payments to drivers above their standard wages were processed through a network of cash-intensive businesses: a car wash in Mesquite, a laundromat in Garland, 2 convenience stores in suburban Dallas. The payments averaged $3,200 per delivery. Federal forensic accountants estimate that, over the 4-year period under investigation, at least $14.6 million in illicit payments were processed through this network. The number of victims is still being determined. The current confirmed count, as of last Friday's press conference, is 63 women. Investigators believe the actual number may exceed 200. You are perhaps asking, at this point in the story, the obvious question: how does a network of this scale operate for 4 years inside one of the most heavily regulated industries in the United States, undetected by federal inspectors, state troopers, weigh station officials, and the trucking company's own internal compliance officers? The answer, federal prosecutors allege, is that it did not operate undetected. It operated with assistance. The indictment names, in addition to the 18 drivers and 4 corporate officers, 2 officials from a state department of transportation, 1 federally certified safety auditor, and a former deputy sheriff in a South Texas county. Each is alleged to have received payments from the network in exchange for routing inspections away from flagged vehicles, signing off on falsified compliance reports, or providing advance warning of law enforcement operations along the corridor. The deputy sheriff, according to the indictment, was paid $4,500 per month in cash. He retired with full benefits in 2023. He coached his son's Little League team. He sat on the board of a local food bank. He was arrested at 4:12 a.m. Tuesday morning at his home in a gated community outside McAllen by a team of 6 federal agents. His wife was present. So were his 2 grandchildren, who were visiting for fall break. The coordinated raids began at 3:47 a.m. Central Time and concluded by 6:30 a.m. They unfolded across 6 states: Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, New Mexico, and Missouri. In addition to the truck stop in Laredo, agents executed warrants at the Dallas headquarters of the trucking conglomerate, at the Garland body shop where compartments were installed, at the homes of 14 drivers, at the residences of the named corporate officers, and at the offices of the cooperating state transportation officials. 18 drivers were taken into custody. 4 corporate officers, including the CEO, were arrested at their residences. The body shop owner was arrested as he opened his establishment for the day at 6:14 a.m. The two transportation officials were detained at their workplaces. The former deputy sheriff was arrested at home. The federally certified safety auditor was arrested at a Marriott in Shreveport, where he had been attending a compliance conference. Federal agents seized 31 vehicles, $2, $3 million in cash, 4 firearms, 11 laptops, 94 cellular phones, and a server array recovered from a climate-controlled storage facility in Plano. The server array contained, according to a court filing made yesterday morning, more than 4 terabytes of dispatch records, encrypted communications, and financial documentation. Most importantly, agents recovered 11 women, 9 in trucks intercepted on the road during the operation, and 2 from a holding location in a warehouse outside Houston. All 11 are receiving medical care and victim services. None of their names will be released. The CEO of the trucking conglomerate appeared in federal court Tuesday afternoon. He wore a Navy jail jumpsuit. He did not enter a plea. His attorney requested bail. The federal magistrate denied the request, citing flight risk and the severity of the charges, which include conspiracy to engage in human trafficking, conspiracy to commit money laundering, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and 12 counts of trafficking in persons. If convicted on all counts, he faces a mandatory minimum sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The United States Attorney for the Northern District of Texas held a press conference at 2 p.m. She stood at a podium flanked by the special agent in charge of the FBI's Dallas field office, the Director of Homeland Security Investigations for the region, and 3 representatives from victim advocacy organizations. Today, she said, reading from prepared remarks, we have dismantled a criminal enterprise that exploited the very infrastructure of American commerce to perpetrate one of the gravest violations of human dignity imaginable. The defendants in this case used their positions of trust as transportation professionals, as public officials, as corporate executives to facilitate the systematic abduction, transportation, and exploitation of vulnerable women. They will be held accountable. Every one of them, to the fullest extent of federal law. She took 4 questions. She declined to answer 3 of them, citing the ongoing investigation. To the 4th question, whether more arrests were anticipated, she said only this: we are not finished. In the days since the raids, additional details have emerged. A former dispatcher for one of the implicated companies has reportedly entered into a cooperation agreement with federal prosecutors. A second trucking conglomerate, headquartered in Phoenix, has been named in subsequent court filings as a possible affiliate of the network. The FBI has established a tip line for anyone with information related to the case. Industry response has been swift. The American Trucking Associations issued a statement Tuesday afternoon condemning the conduct of the implicated parties and emphasizing the industry's commitment to anti-trafficking efforts, including the Truckers Against Trafficking program, which has trained more than 1.7 million drivers to recognize and report signs of human trafficking. Representatives from that program were among the first to be briefed by federal investigators following the raids. But the broader implications are unsettling. If a network of this sophistication operated for 4 years inside the regulated trucking industry, with corporate cover, financial laundering, official corruption, and mechanical infrastructure dedicated specifically to the concealment of human victims, what other networks are operating now? How many women are currently being moved across state lines, hidden behind false panels, in the sleeper berths of trucks driven by men with clean logbooks and platinum tier? Safety records? The federal investigation continues. The corridor remains active. The interstates do not sleep. There is one final detail worth noting. The 19-year-old woman recovered from the Kenworth in Laredo, the 7th victim found in the early hours of Tuesday morning, had been reported missing 11 days earlier, from a town in central Honduras. Her family had been told by an intermediary that she had been offered legitimate employment at a hotel in Houston. They had not heard from her since she left. When federal agents recovered her from the sleeper compartment, she was conscious. She was dehydrated. She was, according to the medical personnel who treated her at a Laredo hospital, in stable condition. She asked the agents, through a Spanish-language interpreter, only one question. She asked if her mother knew she was alive. If you have information about human trafficking, you can contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or text help to 233733. If you suspect that someone you know, a friend, a family member, a neighbor, may be a victim of trafficking, do not assume that someone else will report it. Do not assume that the signs are too small to matter. Do not assume that the systems designed to protect us are functioning as intended. The truck in Laredo passed 17 weigh stations on its route north. It was inspected twice. Its driver had a clean record. The woman in the sleeper berth was there the entire time. Stay vigilant. Stay informed. And remember that the infrastructure we trust to move our goods, our food, our medicine can be turned by the right combination of greed, corruption, and silence into the infrastructure of something far darker. The investigation continues. The arrests will continue. The corridor, for now, runs on.